All right, let's jump into a deep dive on AI and creativity. You sent us this cool study about large language models, like ChatGPT, those AI systems that can like write text. But this study, it's got a really interesting angle. It pits them against humans in a creativity showdown.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just like, can AI be creative? It's like, how does their creativity stack up against ours? And the researchers took it a step further. They actually looked at both individual and collective creativity.
Collective creativity.
Yeah, so like, can a bunch of LLMs working together match what a whole group of humans can come up with? That's a big question. That's what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so let's like put on our explorer hats and dive into this study. First, I think we got to look at how those LLMs did on, individual tasks. Things like coming up with new product ideas or writing like compelling stories.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a creative decathlon for the AI.
Oh, I like that.
And to make sure the LLMs weren't just like spitting back stuff they already knew, the researchers made sure all the tasks were brand new, things these LLMs had never seen before.
Oh, so no cheating allowed. That's super important if you're trying to really measure their creativity, right?
Right.
So did the machines, rise to the challenge.
Well, the study found that overall, LLMs ranked in the 46th percentile compared to humans.
Okay.
So the average LLM is a little less creative than the average human, but that's not the whole picture.
I was going to say, there's got to be more to it.
Right. Some LLMs actually did better than humans on certain tasks, and two LLMs, Claude and GPT-4, they kind of stole the show. They both scored in the 52nd percentile, which basically means they were on par with the average human in this study.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. It sounds like AI is catching up quick.
It is, it is. And as LLMs keep evolving, we can probably expect even more creative stuff from them.
So it's not just like humans versus machines.
Yeah.
It's more complicated than that, right? Like some LLMs are really good at certain things.
Exactly, exactly. And to really get those nuances, we need to look at the different types of creative tasks that were tested. So the study looked at three main areas: divergent thinking, problem solving, and creative writing.
Okay. Let's start with divergent thinking. Remind me, what exactly is that?
So divergent thinking is all about generating a wide range of ideas. It's like thinking outside the box. When you're brainstorming, coming up with all sorts of different solutions to a problem.
Right.
And speaking of survival, the study actually had tasks that were all about survival. Like participants had to come up with ways to stay warm on a deserted island or figure out how to pick fruit from a tall tree.
Okay, so how'd the LLMs do in these survival of the fittest ideas challenges? Did they come up with anything actually new and useful?
Well, in terms of just the number of ideas, the LLMs were way ahead of the humans, like almost twice as many ideas. But it's not just about quantity, right? Quality matters too.
So were those LLM-generated ideas any good? Did they pass the, novelty and usefulness test?
That's where things get interesting. The researchers actually had human judges rate all the ideas, both on novelty, meaning how original the idea was, and usefulness, would it actually solve the problem?
Makes sense. So were the LLM ideas both new and practical?
The results were mixed. Some LLMs, like our all-stars, Claude and GPT-4, consistently came up with ideas that were rated as both novel and useful. Others, not so much.
So some AI systems are better at finding that balance, like coming up with something new that actually works.
Exactly. And that's where we start to see some cool stuff emerge. For example, the study found there was a bit of a trade-off between novelty and usefulness. And this was true for both human and LLM responses.
Yeah, what do you mean by trade-off?
So basically, ideas that were rated as really novel, meaning they were super original, were often rated as less useful. And the other way around, the more practical an idea was, the less original it tended to be.
Oh, interesting. So it's like this tension between thinking way outside the box and coming up with solutions that are actually grounded in reality.
Exactly. And that's something that both humans and LLMs seem to struggle with. Now, let's shift gears to the next creative area: problem solving.
Okay, so this is where the LLMs can really show off, right? What kind of problems did they have to solve?
Yeah, this area included 6 tasks, 3 focused on, scientific problems and 3 on social problems.
So a mix of technical challenges and, real-world dilemmas.
Exactly. So for the sciencey stuff, the LLMs had to design improvements to a bicycle, come up with ways to prevent bike theft, and figure out how to repurpose bicycle parts.
Okay, sounds like a pretty tough challenge. And what about the social problems?
Well, they had to brainstorm ways to conserve water, promote a water-saving app, and come up with improvements to that app to make sure people would actually use it.
So challenges that need both creativity and a good understanding of how people behave.
Right. And remember how we said LLMs were pretty good at problem solving? Well, this is where they really shined. GPT-4 especially consistently did better than humans on those social problem solving tasks.
So GPT-4 has a knack for those tricky social situations, huh? But what about the science problems? Did they do as well on those?
It was more of a mixed bag. Some LLMs did about the same as humans, others not so much.
Interesting. So it seems like the type of problem can affect how well an LLM does. Now, I'm curious about the final area, creative writing. That's where the LLMs struggled a bit overall, right?
Yeah, creative writing was definitely the toughest for them. Human communication, it relies a lot on subtle emotional cues and shared cultural understanding. Those are things that are really hard for AI to grasp.
So even though they've got access to tons of text data,
Yeah.
they're still not like masters of the written word.
Exactly. They haven't quite figured out the whole human storytelling thing yet. One task, for example, was to write an advertisement for a robot companion for elderly people.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. But I'm guessing the LLMs didn't really nail the emotional side of it.
Yeah, you got it. Like the LLM generated ads were grammatically correct. They had the info, but they didn't have that emotional depth or persuasive power that the human written ads had. Appealing to emotions is still a very human thing.
Okay, so we've seen how LLMs do on these individual tasks, and some of the results are really impressive, especially with problem solving. But now I want to know, what happens when we talk about collective creativity? Can a group of LLMs working together actually rival a group of humans? That's when things get really interesting, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next. Yeah, collective creativity. It's kind of like imagine you're brainstorming and you've got a whole team of AI assistants right there with you, just churning out ideas super fast. But can those ideas really stack up against what a group of humans could come up with? That's what the researchers were trying to figure out.
So how do you even, measure something as complex as collective creativity?
Well, they had a really clever way of doing it. Instead of just looking at one LLM giving one answer, they looked at what happens when you ask an LLM to come up with a whole bunch of solutions. Like, imagine you're working on a project and your AI assistant just spits out like 10 different ideas for you to consider.
That's wild. But wouldn't that be kind of overwhelming? To have to sift through so many ideas, and more importantly, would those ideas actually be any good? Like, would they measure up to what a team of humans could come up with?
Exactly. Those are the big questions, right? And what they found is pretty mind-blowing. They found that when you ask an LLM for 10 responses, it's basically the same as having a group of 8 to 10 humans in terms of the number of top ideas it produces.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying one LLM could replace a whole team of human brainstormers? That's crazy.
It is a really cool finding, but it's important to understand what we're actually talking about here. This equivalence is based on looking at like the top 10 ideas for a task and seeing how many came from the LLM versus humans. So while one LLM might not come up with as many great ideas as hundreds of humans, it can definitely hold its own against a small team.
Okay, so it's not about replacing all human creativity. It's more like amplifying it.
Mhm.
It's like having a superpowered brainstorming buddy right there to help you come up with more ideas than you could on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And the implications of that are huge,
Yeah.
especially when you think about the future of work. Imagine having a tool that can just pump out tons of diverse ideas, helping you get past creative blocks and explore stuff you might never have thought of otherwise.
It's like having a whole team of creative collaborators, like right there in your pocket, ready to brainstorm whenever you need them. That could revolutionize so many fields, from marketing and advertising to product design and even scientific research.
Totally, totally. And the study also looked at how this collective creativity scales up. So they found that for every 2 extra LLM responses, it's basically like adding 1 extra human to your brainstorming group. So the more you ask the LLM to generate, the more creative power you have.
That's so cool. It's like having this AI creativity engine that you can just crank up as needed.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing this also depends on what kind of creative task we're talking about, right?
You got it. Remember how we said LLMs were really good at problem solving? Well, that strength really shines through in collective creativity too. In that area, adding 1 extra human to your brainstorming group is about the same as getting like 1.25 LLM responses.
So LLMs are super efficient problem solvers, even when they're working together. But what about creative writing? Is it the same story there?
Not quite. When it comes to creative writing, the gap between human and LLM collective creativity is much bigger. You'd need almost 7 extra LLM responses to match the creative output of just one more human in that area.
Wow, that's a huge difference. It seems like human storytelling still has something special that AI hasn't quite figured out yet.
It does, it does. And that's an important takeaway from this study. AI is getting really good at creative stuff, but there's still some things that humans are uniquely good at, especially when it comes to expressing emotions, telling stories, and connecting with people on a deeper level.
Okay, so we've talked about individual tasks, we've looked at collective creativity, and it's all really fascinating stuff. But what does this actually mean for the future of work? Are we all going to have LLM assistants helping us brainstorm and write ads? And if so, what happens to the role of human creativity in the workplace?
Those are the million-dollar questions, and they're ones that we need to really think about as AI keeps getting more advanced.
Yeah, it's like we're standing at this, it's like fork in the road. On one hand, you've got these LLMs that are doing some pretty amazing creative stuff, generating ideas, solving problems. But then on the other hand, there are still things like creative writing where humans seem to have the edge.
Right, right. And we got to remember, this study is just one little slice of time. AI is always changing. Who knows what LLMs will be able to do in the future, right?
That's true. What seems impossible today might be totally normal tomorrow. But for right now, it seems like the best way forward is like collaboration. Instead of thinking of AI as a threat to human creativity, maybe we should think about how we can use its strengths to make our own creativity even better.
Totally agree. It's not about humans versus machines. It's about figuring out how to work together, combine the best of both to do things we couldn't do before.
So instead of worrying about AI taking our jobs, we should be thinking about how we can use it to be even more creative, even more productive.
Exactly. Think of it as having this like creative partner who can just instantly spit out ideas,
Hmm.
explore different angles, help you break through those times when you just get stuck.
And it's not just about coming up with ideas. These LLMs could also help us refine our existing ideas,
Yeah.
try out different approaches, really push the limits of what's possible.
For sure. Imagine being able to test out all these different versions of a design or a marketing campaign or a story with the help of an AI assistant. That could really speed up the creative process and let us try so many more things.
It's like having a creative sounding board that's always there,
Yep.
to bounce ideas off of and get instant feedback. That could be a game changer for anyone who works in a creative field.
Yeah, it really could. And it's important to remember that these tools are still pretty new. As LLMs get more advanced, easier to use, their potential to really boost human creativity is just going to keep growing.
It's a pretty exciting time to be working in a creative field, I gotta say. It's like we're at the very beginning of this whole new era of creativity, one where humans and AI can team up to do things that we never even dreamed of before.
It really is. And while there are definitely some challenges, like making sure AI is used ethically and responsibly, the potential benefits are huge.
So you sent us this research because you're curious about how AI might change creativity in your field. What are you taking away from our conversation today?
What really sticks with me is that the future of creativity is probably going to be a mix of both, A world where humans and AI work together, each bringing their own unique strengths.
And that opens up all sorts of new questions, like how will these collaborations actually work in practice? What new skills will we need? What new ways of thinking will we have to learn to be successful in this new creative world?
Great questions. I hope you keep exploring them as AI becomes a bigger part of our creative lives.
Well, we've gone pretty deep into the world of AI creativity today, haven't we? We've looked at individual tasks, collective brainstorming, the implications for the future of work. It's clear that LLMs are already doing some seriously creative stuff, and AI is going to be a big part of shaping how we create in the future.
Definitely. And while it's natural to have some worries about what AI means for human creativity, I think it's important to approach it with curiosity and openness, To embrace the possibilities it offers while also protecting those things that make human creativity so special and valuable.
It's been an amazing journey today, and we hope you've enjoyed diving deep with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep asking those big questions.